2 decades of dominance have made Aaron Rodgers one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. As a 4-time MVP, 10-time Pro Bowler, and a record holder for the best touchdown to interception ratio ever, this dominance definitely has not gone unnoticed. But during that time, he has also gained his fair share of critics.
He did choke. He absolutely choked. If by he you mean Aaron Rodgers, why are you trying to shift the blame off of Aaron Rodgers? Read my lips. Aaron Rodgers choked.
Whoa!
Aaron Rodgers choked.
There's no doubt been many headlines off the field, as there have been on it, leaving teammates, coaches, and opponents with plenty to say about him. And in today's video, we're going to look at different times that players, coaches, and even analysts tried to tear down Aaron Rodgers and reveal exactly what they think about the controversial quarterback. And at the end of the video, we'll even reveal what Brett Favre, the quarterback that Aaron Rodgers took his job from, really thinks about him. Because this is what NFL players really think about Aaron Rodgers. Now, before entering the league, Aaron Rodgers spent 2 seasons as the starting quarterback for the California Golden Bears. In his second year at the school in 2004, he was named first team All Pac-10 as Cal went 10-2, only the school's second 10-win season in the previous 54 years. Cal head coach at the time, Jeff Tedford, identified Rodgers whilst he was still playing at Butte Community College and could almost see instantly just how special he was, going on to even say this about him during his time there.
It was very evident that the guy was pretty special. And, watching him on tape, some of the things he did, and then watching him in person, and not just the physical tools that he had, but to see how he interacted with his teammates and the leadership and things like that, it was very evident that he's a special guy and would be a great leader for a program.
I mean, honestly, Tedford's judgment of Aaron Rodgers was well-deserved, and honestly, when he was in college, he looks really, really good. At Cal, Aaron Rodgers made a case for him being the #1 overall pick, and the 49ers actually had that pick, who Aaron Rodgers watched growing up. The only problem was, though, is that not many analysts agreed with that take that the Cal head coach was giving. And even many years later, Aaron Rodgers went on the Dan Patrick show to read those evaluations, and they just were all hilariously wrong and just not correct at all.
This is actual comments made by Scouts Draft Profile Aaron Rodgers.
Gets sacked a lot, doesn't have ability to change the release of the football, mechanically very rigid. He's a little too short. Jeff Tedford, coach quarterbacks, never pan out. Too well-schooled, very robotic, don't become good pro players. Rodgers is the same mold. System quarterback.
Ooh.
Can't create on his own.
Ouch.
Panics under pressure, gets flustered easily.
The idea that Rodgers, one of the best improvisers in the history of the sport, was termed as a rigid and robotic quarterback by any evaluator is clearly ridiculous. But there must have been just enough doubters in the Niners organization to make them pass on their Cal Golden Boy. As a result, they would take Alex Smith out of Utah instead, and Rodgers would begin to fall down the draft board. This would prove to be one of the most famous draft day moments in league history, as he spent 4.5 hours on camera in New York watching 23 other men being drafted in front of him. Eventually, though, he would be selected by the Packers as the long-term successor to future Hall of Famer Brett Favre. As we all do know, with their careers going the way they did, this actually did prove to be a great move for the Green Bay Packers. But as we all know too, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers always didn't see eye to eye. Even prior to the 2005 season, Favre famously said this: "My contract doesn't say I have to get Aaron Rodgers ready to play. Now, hopefully he watches me and gets something from that." Rodgers and Favre were said to have a strained relationship at the time, with Favre understandably concerned about a rookie quarterback who was after his job. However, removed from the conflict they had as teammates, the two are now on much better terms these days. Speaking during the 2020 season, Favre even said this:
aside from the Super Bowls, he may be the greatest player ever. I say this all the time. Tom Brady is the greatest player ever if we're measuring from a Super Bowl. And statistic-wise, Tom has put up tremendous statistics and has won 6 Super Bowls. But Aaron is, believe me, the Packers are good year in and year out because of him. And his statistics certainly speak for themselves. He's not doing anything to jeopardize the team. I'm just amazed at how prolific he is and takes care of the ball in the process. Just an incredible player. makes everyone around him just so much better.
And for a quarterback like Favre, himself one of the greatest of all time at the position, to talk about Rodgers like this helps to demonstrate just how great he is and the regard he's held in by the players who do know him the best. In 2008, Favre did go on to announce his first retirement, with Rodgers taking the starting gig at Lambeau after 3 seasons on the bench. This clearly came with plenty of pressure, as Favre was extremely popular during his 15 years as QB1 in Green Bay, but Rodgers quickly showed the fans and the rest of the league that he was up to the task. Just 7 games into his first season as a starter, Rodgers was given a 5-year contract extension, and the then GM Ted Thompson went on to say that we think this is a good long-term investment for the organization. We're looking at it from a longer view rather than just the last 2 months, and we think he will continue to develop his craft. And well, he wasn't wrong. In 2010, Aaron Rodgers threw 28 touchdowns and just 11 interceptions as the Packers win 10-6 and earn the 6th seed in the NFC. What followed then next was 4 fairy tale weeks for Packers fans everywhere, as they became the first ever 6th seed to lift the Lombardi Trophy. In the first 2 rounds, Rodgers was absolutely magnificent, putting up 526 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions as the Packers brushed aside the Eagles and the Falcons on the road. In the championship game though, against Chicago, Rodgers kind of did struggle there though. He threw 2 interceptions and 0 touchdowns in sub-zero temperatures at Soldier Field. However, the Packers squeezed that one through with a 21-14 victory, setting up a date with destiny and the Pittsburgh Steelers on February 6, 2010. Mike Tomlin and his Steelers were looking for their 2nd title in 3 years, but that night in Dallas, they could only look on and appreciate greatness. Green Bay came out on top, beating Pittsburgh 31-25, with Rodgers having a career-defining night with 304 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks, gaining a unanimous Super Bowl MVP award for his efforts. This Steelers team was the league's #1 defense, but they had no answers for Rodgers, who etched his name and himself into history that night. Even in the post-game conference, Mike Tomlin went on to say that he showed his mettle and continued to stand there and throw the football accurately. Fast forward to 2021, and it was clear how much Tomlin still respected and admired Aaron Rodgers as a player and as a competitor, saying this. But that's the thing. In 2011, Aaron Rodgers was just getting started. That year, he went on to have arguably the best season of any quarterback in league history, throwing 45 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions and finishing with a league record 122.5 passer rating. Unsurprisingly, he lifted the MVP award that year as the Packers went 15-1 before suffering a shocking divisional round loss to the New York Giants. But Rodgers' status as the best in the league was secured, especially in the eyes of his peers. Even listen to what cornerback Brandon Flowers at the time, who faced Rodgers that year, had to say about it.
We call him Mr. Cool over here. He always have a smile on his face, doesn't anything rattle him on the field. It's hard to pick up anything on Aaron Rodgers. That's what makes him so good. He doesn't have a go-to receiver. It's not routes that he loves to go at this receiver at. He just, wherever the open guy is, wherever matchup he likes, that's who he goes to.
The compliments for Rodgers often reference his arm mechanics, but also his mentality and willingness to improve. Texans tight end Owen Daniels at the time had extremely high praise in terms of comparable players, stating this.
I think he's comparable to Peyton Manning in terms of always thinking about the game, always being about football, and thinking about how they can get better.
Throughout the next decade of pro football, the Packers were invariably a contender for the playoffs and beyond, largely due to the presence of number 12 under center. In 2014, Rodgers was then named another MVP, and in the eyes of his coach Mike McCarthy, he thought that Aaron Rodgers was a much better player than he was in 2011. And honestly, if you look at the stats, he definitely was. As McCarthy was frequently full of praise on his star quarterback, but there were definitely rocky moments in their relationship in Wisconsin. Even at one point too, McCarthy called Rodgers a low football IQ player because of the changing of plays he was calling on the offense around 1/3 of the time at the line of scrimmage that Rodgers was doing. McCarthy did eventually leave Green Bay at the end of the 2018 season, but on his side, he had plenty of positive things to say about his star quarterback, discussing the standard he set for others to attain. He went on to say that it was the difficulty of coaching a Hall of Fame quarterback, and it's keeping that connection, the efficiency, and the fluency with the other players on offense. They want to do more. They're capable of doing so much more, but the reality is you have to remember it is the coordination of 11 men on every play. And I mean, even after that quote too, it definitely has been shown that at times Rodgers has been called out as a diva due to the way he's handled some of the situations with young receivers. However, this perception has been challenged by many of his more popular receivers. I mean, former Packers receiver James Jones even went on to say this.
I've been saying the same thing since I played with Aaron. I played with Aaron when Aaron was nothing. This is the same dude that is the godparents to Randall Cobb's kids. Like, that don't just happen because you're not a solid dude. So Aaron Rodgers, I've been saying this for years, he cares about what his teammates think. Even playing with them, being in the huddle, if he didn't throw you the ball, he felt some type of way about it. He wanted to get everybody involved in the football game. Obviously, we know certain people are going to have more catches than others, but that was always on his mind. Being a good teammate, he was always really good in the locker room. This is 12, man.
And it wasn't just him either, with one of his favorite targets ever in Randall Cobb explaining it this way.
He's one of the most special individuals that I've been around. He's very caring, he's very knowledgeable. He puts in the time and effort to learn about things. He's not just going to do what people tell him. He's going to ask why, and he's going to learn. He's very thoughtful. I had a birthday party for my son, his godson, and he flew in for a 3-year-old birthday party.
However, some of the worst criticism he's ever faced has come from ex-teammates. I mean, in September 2021, ex-Packer Jermichael Finley questioned the reigning MVP Rodgers' desire to keep playing at that level.
He had some fascinating comments about his former quarterback. Listen to this.
I just don't see a work ethic in Aaron Rodgers that I have in previous years. He's a quarterback that doesn't never take blame for himself. He's that guy, if I throw the ball, the receiver's got to catch it wherever it's at. He's not a guy, if you go into the film room and he made a bad pass, he's not that guy who's going to raise his hand and say, oh, that's my bad. He's going to make sure that the coaches know that that's all on you.
Ultimately, Rodgers' final few seasons in Green Bay under new head coach Matt LaFleur would see him play some of the best football ever, but also more playoff heartbreak. In both 2020 and 2021, Rodgers would be named league MVP, but on both occasions, his Packers would fall in the playoffs to Tampa Bay and San Francisco respectively. The 2020 season's NFC Championship loss to the Bucs stung particularly, as this was Rodgers' 5th championship game and his first at home. This would prove to be the story of Rodgers' late career at Lambeau Field, and it led some to call him a choker, including ESPN's Max Kellerman the morning after those games.
He did choke. He absolutely choked. If by he you mean Aaron Rodgers, why are you trying to shift the blame off of Aaron Rodgers? Read my lips. Aaron Rodgers choked.
Whoa!
Aaron Rodgers choked.
Like, I mean, despite these struggles in January football, Rodgers still commanded immense respect from his peers, who ranked him as the 3rd best player in football in 2022. I mean, even Cleveland Browns star defensive end and Myles Garrett might have said something even higher than that.
A perfect ball is a perfect ball. You can't do much about it. When he does it so consistently, you can't help but look at him and see that he's the best in the league.
I mean, hopefully, as his career is winding down now, it is impossible not to see the huge impact he's made on the NFL. His 4 MVP awards are only bettered by Peyton Manning, and his career passer rating of 102.6 is still an NFL record as the conclusion of the 2024 season. But perhaps the final word on this matter should go to his favorite wide receiver ever and fellow future Hall of Famer in Davante Adams, who played with Rodgers as both a Packer and as a Jet. I mean, Adams even attributes his own status as an all-time great to Rodgers, saying it this way.
He was part of why I am who I am and why I turned into the player, whether it's the cerebral approach, it's the attention to detail, just learning from him and watching him operate and just how dialed in he is at all times. I feel like that has a lot to do with how I ultimately ended up being kind of function the way I do as a player.
Of course, where Aaron Rodgers does play in 2025, if anywhere at all, does remain to be seen, but the regard he's held in by so many in the game shows us just how much he'll be missed and that we really should always appreciate greatness while it is still here.